Hey, Sean with IQ Barbecue, and today we're making the infamous heart attack meat pie.
Have a heart and a head man ready.
This is going to be 9 pounds of artery clogging goodness, bacon, sausage, beef, all wrapped into a cast iron skillet and finished on the Weber smoke fire. Stay tuned. Okay, so before we get into making the meat portion of this meat pie, we have to start with our stuffing, and that's going to be our vegetables. So let's start with a red onion. We're going to chop this red onion not that fine. We want some decent sized pieces here for our filling. Also keeps it from breaking down. Okay. Whoop. Okay. So we'll take this onion and we'll go ahead and get this into a saucepan with a little bit of avocado oil and get this over a medium heat and start sweating these down. So next, a potato that I cut in half, and I just did a quick peeling of it. Didn't take all the skin off. I want a little bit of the skin left on there. That's completely fine. And we're gonna do the same thing here. It's kind of a rough chop. I may not need all of this potato, but we're gonna cook it all, and what we don't need, we'll have left over. And this last one here. All right. Now we'll get that with our onions, and next, bell pepper. So I'm going to do 3 different color bell peppers here, a red, a yellow, and an orange. Again, I don't think I'm going to need all this bell pepper, but we'll cut it and we'll use what we need. And you can see again, rough chop. We're not trying to get this into a finely diced bell pepper. Just trying to get some bigger pieces here, because when I cook these with the meat pie, we don't want them to break down and get mushy. So now we're gonna take all this, put it in our pan with our onions and get those to start sweating down. And the reason why we do this, we could just take the raw vegetables and put them right in the meat pie. But if you do that, what ends up generally happening is all the moisture and the water from those vegetables just ends up saturating the ground beef. So we don't want to do that. We want to get some of that moisture out before we cook it in our Weber smoke fire. So let's get these on the heat. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put our potatoes and bell peppers in with the onions as well, and let those start cooking down. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of the rest of that garlic in there. Now, a little bit of our SPG rub. Those of you who are not familiar with that, it's just salt, pepper, garlic, a little bit of onion powder. And again, we're going to let this just sweat down until we lose about maybe half the moisture. So the pan will be about half full. Okay, while that's cooking, let's get to the meat. So we've got a couple pounds of ground beef here. We're going to add, again, some of that of our SPG to that. And we'll go ahead and mix that up a little bit. And remember, when you're making meatloaf, the one thing you really want to be careful of is over mixing the meat. You don't want to do that. The meat will become less tender. It just doesn't come out nearly as good. So just a light mix is good. You don't have to, just kind of mix it up into oblivion here. You just want to do a light mix to it. Next, we're going to put 1 pound of sausage into the mixture and combine that. That sausage is going to give us that little bit more of a bite and a lot more of a higher fat content as well. Keeps it really juicy. Love mixing sausage with this. This is something you can even add brisket to if you wanted to. Okay, now a couple eggs. A little bit of sriracha sauce. And so that sriracha sauce and the egg will get us that bite we're looking for. And just fold this over. Okay, should look pretty wet at this point with all the moisture we put into it. Now, last, we're gonna put about a 1/4 cup of half and half and some just regular breadcrumbs. And we're gonna use this really as our binder to kind of hold it all together. You can use milk, you don't have to use half and half, but I find half and half gives a little more of a richness, and it does bind better than just using milk. And this is looking good. And you're looking for a texture here that will hold its shape. It won't really fall apart, but at the same time, it has a little bit of tackiness to it. Okay, and I like the way that's looking. All right, we'll set this aside, and let's take a look at our vegetables. Yeah, and they're looking really good. Getting a nice color on them, and you can see they've sweat down. They're about half this, as full as this pan was when we started. So let them continue to go. Okay, so now let's get to the cast iron pan. We're gonna cook this in. It's a 13-inch cast iron pan. We're gonna add a little bit of avocado oil to it. I'll just take a paper towel and I'm just gonna kind of move it around the outsides and the bottom. Now we're gonna add a piece of parchment paper to the bottom of it. Just makes it easier for us to get it out when it's done, because remember, we're gonna cook it here upside down essentially. We'll flip it over when it's done. Okay, so we'll put our parchment paper in there. Doesn't have to be perfect, just something to cover the bottom. Okay, so now we're gonna add what makes everything better, bacon. We're gonna just take the bacon and we're going to put it starting in the center, let the rest just drape over the side. We're gonna put that all the way around the pan. Now what I typically like to do first here is get like a cross going here, and then I come back and fill in the edges. This is gonna add so much more flavor to it and add a lot of moisture. Keep the meat pie moist throughout the entire cook. Look how good that's coming. All right. Don't be skimpy with the bacon as well. Feel free to get, you know, I'm going to end up using probably about 1.5 pounds of bacon here. Okay, well there's 1 pound of bacon done. On to the 2nd pound. What you're left with here essentially is a kind of a bacon star. It looks really, really good. And we're going to end up with about just a couple pieces of bacon left from that 2-pound package. So a lot of bacon. I think I will use one more piece over here though, because I can do that. And there we go. And it should look just like that. Okay, next step. Add our hamburger on top of the bacon. And not use all of it. We're only going to use part of it because we're going to put some of the beef on the top as well. But we'll get some of this in here and start just kind of carefully spreading it around to the edges. Now you want the meat to go up the edges a little bit and have a little bit of a, almost like a bowl, because we want our vegetables to go in the middle of that. You want the meat to be about 1 inch thick, maybe 1.5 inches, depending on the size of the cast iron skillet or the container you're using. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll just press down a little bit here to push this towards the edge and get a little bit of a indentation in the hamburger. Okay, and that is basically what you're looking for. So you have a little bit of a bottom here for everything to go into. Next step. Before we put our vegetables, we're going to put some cheese down. So I cut some pepper jack and some cheddar. I just did some rough slices here because you don't have to do any more than that, because this cheese is going to cook for a while. It's going to melt, so you don't have to cut it way down. So cheddar there. Now our vegetables. Okay, now our vegetables, and we're going to basically just spoon these vegetables right on the top of this. As I figured, I thought I had more than enough vegetables, which we obviously do. A little more is good. There we go. All right. And so when you're done, it should look just like that. Okay, the home stretch here. So I went ahead and grated up some of that pepper jack and cheddar cheese in a finely grated. I'm going to just put this a little over the top here, because you can't have too much cheese. So like that. Push it down a little bit. In fact, we'll just put the rest of that cheese. There's not that much left. Okay, now I went ahead and I made essentially a large hamburger patty here that we're going to flip. We're going to flip over the top of this. So take this, just like that, on some parchment paper, of course. Doesn't stick. And there we go. Okay. So we'll get our hamburger now. We'll just press this down along the seams here to get it kind of to merge with the bottom hamburger. Kind of push down as you go to get a nice solid structure here. About like that. Lastly, take your bacon and fold your bacon over the top. Right back in the center, just like we did on the bottom. Which will then seal up this meat cake monster with meat, vegetables, bacon, and last one. All right. Hey, you know what? How good does that look? Gotta tell you, that looks really good. So we're gonna put this on the Weber smoke fire. We're gonna put the smoke fire at 275 degrees. I'm gonna cook this for probably about an hour and a half, or until the internal temperature of the ground beef is 160 degrees. But when it gets to be about 155, we're gonna go ahead and put a glaze over it as well. So we're gonna watch this. We'll monitor it after about an hour and start watching the temperature, but I'm thinking about an hour and a half. Again, 275 Fahrenheit, and get some smoke on it. Okay, so it's been about an hour and 45 minutes. The internal temperature of the meat right now is about 155 degrees. We're gonna go ahead and put a glaze on it and let it sit on there for another maybe 15 minutes or so. Then we'll pull it off and let's taste this. So the glaze, we just took a standard barbecue sauce. I added a couple teaspoons of apple cider vinegar and then some of the more original marinade. This stuff is great. Just to add a little extra flavor to it. It's got a little bit of Worcestershire sauce in it, a little bit of soy sauce. It's perfect. And again, it gives that little bit of a hickory taste as well. So we're going to put this over the top of the meat pie now and let it finish. Oh, and how good does that look? So we're going to take our glaze here. We're just going to let it just drizzle right over the top. Don't have to be perfect here in any way at all. Just drizzle that glaze right over the top of the bacon. Okay. And then I will get a little brush here and we'll just brush areas we may have missed. Perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna let this go for about another 15 minutes or so. Let that glaze set, and then we're ready to cut this up and taste it. Okay, all done. Let's get this thing out of the smoke fire. Woo! Look at that. I'll tell you what, that's pretty incredible looking. All bubbly, gooey. It just looks so good. In fact, I don't think I'm gonna flip this. I think I'm gonna take it out just the way it is there. I don't think it needs to be flipped. Just perfect. So, next thing, we'll wait about 30 minutes for it to cool down, firm up a little bit, and then we'll cut it. Holy moly, look at that thing. Look at that, it is huge. I actually weighed this and it weighs 9.2 pounds. Ridiculous. So, let's cut it. I thought it'd be good to use a bread knife here only because I could use a serrated edge to cut through it. Okay, let's see what this, ooh, look at that. Wow, look at that. Look at that, cheese, vegetables, beef, more cheese, sausage, bacon, just one layer after another. How good does that look? That's crazy. Okay, we're gonna have to cut this and then taste it. So what I think I'm gonna do is cut a slice just like it was a piece of pie, like so. Put it in a dish, and let's give it a taste. Wow, look at that. And if you can see, it's got a smoke ring in there from the Weber. The glaze has just created a nice little sweet shell on the top. The beef, the sausage, the cheese, unbelievable. Well, let's give it a taste, because that's all that really matters here. That is incredibly good. You can taste the bacon, you get the sweetness of the glaze we put on the top, but all that beef, that sausage, and you get the onions and the bell peppers and the potatoes in there, very hearty, and then all that cheese. This is one of the best things we've ever made, and it's not that hard to make. It takes a little longer to make, but it's not that difficult. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like our video, subscribe to our channel, and make sure you hit that post notification bell so you get notified whenever we put out a new video, which is every week. And make sure you follow us on our other social media channels like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And remember, with IQ Barbecue, everyone can be a genius in the kitchen. I'm gonna get back to this meat pie. Have a great day.